I've been thinking about what more I could add to the scheme or frame of thought of which we have been discussing, of which we have been reviewing concerning the idea or the thought of moving on and allowing the life of our conversation to generate the kind of experience that it knows that it should be having. And from the questions and the thoughts and the comments, of which all I love and enjoy, figuring out or learning how to creatively illustrate what I have been saying. And the one thought that I had just came to me. I love Samuel, the book of Samuel, first and second. I enjoy reading the that those chapters, and the one story that stood out to me concerning the idea or the thought and the implication of moving without moving is the story of Jonathan and Saul and honey. And so I have that here, and I'm going to just read it. I've done the best that I can to, in this chat, just skim through it, but you have to go through it to get the full thing. So let's just begin here. And the men of Israel were distressed that day, for Saul had adjured the people, saying, Cursed be the man that eateth any food until evening, that I may be avenged on mine enemies. So none of the people tasted any food. And all they of the land came to a wood, and there was honey upon the ground. But no man put his hand to his mouth, for the people feared the oath. But Jonathan heard not when his father charged the people with the oath. Wherefore he put forth the end of the rod that was in his hand, and dipped it in an honeycomb, and put his hand to his mouth, and his eyes were enlightened. Then answered one of the people and said, Thy father straitly charged the people and cursed them, that if they taste any food, this should happen to them, whatever he thought. As a consequence, then said Jonathan, My father hath troubled the land. I pray you how mine eyes have been enlightened, because I have tasted a little of this honey. Now I have this here section out because this is an allegory. This is an allegorical statement here in this story. And as I always say, Bible has humor, and this is Bible humor. Now, when you begin this scene, we hear that Saul distressed the land that day, but we don't understand how. By the time we get near to the end, or to the end, his son confesses how he has distressed the people. Saul distressed the people by placing an oath over them. Saul distressed the people by placing an oath over them. Their conscience was now ruled by the oath. And this isn't, got to remember, if we have to go back in time and in the age, this Saul is connected to a throne that's connected to a throne beyond earth. So the idea of violating this oath, there is an idea that you will somehow face divine consequences in a negative way, because the one sitting on the throne is connected to the throne beyond the earth, and it is assumed that what the one on the throne on earth is doing is ordered and understood to be directly sent from the one on the throne beyond the earth. This distressed the people. And you would think that it would not, because this is a people of oaths. They maintain themselves under oaths, and more specifically, the famous oath of Moses. Many oaths Moses gave to these people. The main oath, which is another word for covenant, that he gave to them with their deity, Again, he gave them the oath of a blessing and a curse if they failed to follow the main oath or covenant. This is Daniel. Remember in the book of Daniel, we have suffered because we have failed to keep the oath that thy servant Moses professed to us, and the curse is on us at this day, us and Jerusalem and thy holy city. It is the oath and the maintaining of conscience under oath that distressed the people. This is humor. This is the same author in the book of Samuel, writing the book of Samuel, that is in another setting, in another scene where Samuel needs to find a way to anoint David. The deity of these people, or should I say the deity of Samuel, tells Samuel, just go ahead and pretend to have a sacrifice. Invent a sacrifice. And when they go, tell them that you have this sacrifice. Invent it. And that's what he does. It's a slight. If we can understand the humor behind the deity of these people that supposedly gave them regulations by Moses through law and through oath, telling Samuel to invent an offering and a sacrifice for the purpose of fulfilling the mission of anointing David as king. That's humor. That's humor. That's personality. That's Bible personality, where you have supposed seriousness fixed on keeping the law of God. Yet, the God that these people are supposed to be fixed on, he himself is not taking as serious as the oath that he has supposedly made with them as you would believe. This is Bible humor. And we find this same sort of Bible humor in this scene between Jonathan and that army and Saul and his people. Because while you have Saul committing to the conscience of those that were following him to avenge himself on his enemies by an oath that they should not taste anything, here you have Jonathan, his son, who did not hear this oath. He didn't hear it, and yet acting because of the hunger that was within him. Didn't hear the oath, didn't care, and tasted. And after he tasted, he looked around and said, "You fools, you listen to this fool telling you don't eat anything when you can eat something and feel better? And now look, I feel better than you and I am refreshed because of it." This is again Bible humor, and this is again an allegory. You have this people, Israel, Saul, king of Israel. They are committed to an oath. They are committed to an oath. Keeping it simple here, this Israelite people are committed to an oath and are committing themselves to an oath. Yet from among their ranks, there is to be an individual that is not committed to an oath, that does not hear the oath, that moves as if the oath doesn't exist, and is enlightened by what is found in an experience without the oath. The author of the book of Samuel is messing with our minds. The author of the book of Samuel is messing with our minds. This people had been bogged down by oaths, repeatedly bogged down by oaths. Even Moses himself confessed that you people have been disgruntled and frustrating ever since I brought you out of Egypt. In the wilderness, they didn't obey the commandments, even though they had the oath to fulfill the obedience to them. Strictness to the oath meant care to whatever the religion meant for the deity that led them out of Egypt. And it's that strictness that the author of the book of Samuel is poking a little bit fun at, or a lot of bit fun at, because you have an oath and one that didn't hear it, and yet one committing themselves to handling themselves despite the oath hovering in existence. And despite that hovering oath in existence, receiving an enlightening experience without the oath and without knowledge of it. This is an allegory pointing to the future, to a future where although an hovering existing oath exists, there is to be enlightenment without it. And to a future, keeping this still, this is still these people, these Hebrews, I'll just keep it Hebrews, morphing into the Jews. This is a Jew-based experience or a Jewish-based experience without oath, but with enlightening. And honey in the Bible is used as a term for enlightening or enlightenment, or you find in the book of Psalms or Proverbs, honey figuratively representing words. Honey figuratively representing knowledge of wisdom. Honey figuratively representing knowledge of wisdom. So you have in this scene of Saul, Jonathan, and the honey, and the people there, you have a scene of oath or covenant versus personal enlightenment or experience. Oath or covenant, personal enlightenment or experience. Jonathan said that his father distressed the land that day by an oath. Now, if Jonathan is saying that the land was distressed by an oath, are we to believe that the oaths established prior did not distress the land? Again, I'm just going to point back to Jeremiah. I did not advise these people concerning burnt offerings or sacrifices. That's their supposed deity saying that, or should I say, saying that to Jeremiah. Nevertheless, we find a different story within the book of Leviticus and Exodus and Numbers and Deuteronomy. The experience versus an oath led, routine or habit. This distressed the land. Are we to not believe? Are we to not believe that if this is distressing in this scene, that we should not be able to consider that outside of this scene and where the oath is again found, it is also distressing? Why is it distressing? Well, it is distressing because Jonathan tells us. Imagine the enlightenment you could have received if you had just tasted just a little bit of this honey. That's Bible humor. That's actually Bible conscience trying to speak to us. That's Bible conscience trying to speak to us. We have honey in front of us. We have honey in front of us. But for some reason, we have made a pledge to a pledge. And it is the pledge to the pledge that we have made that keeps us, and that subconsciously and at times consciously forbids us from tasting the honey that is in front of our face within the book, the words. The words. We are letting the oath and the oath led experience keep the Bible's words forbidden. But if we could only but taste a little bit of the honey therein, we would have the intended enlightening. This is Bible philosophy. This is Bible mind. This is the Bible's conscience speaking without speaking. You're supposed to rationalize these things because the opinion of the scriptures, as I'm always saying, at the center of the Bible is a philosophy that does not condone the human being subjecting conscience to handwritten religious law or to religious law created within. The Bible does not condone this type of experience. If we had to just look beyond what we see on the surface of the scriptures and meditate on instances like this that we find in the book of Samuel, we would see another philosophy. We would see the hidden philosophy that is within the scriptures. A philosophy that is calling the individual, despite you existing in a world where there is nothing but oath, despite you, despite me, despite us. And I'm saying you, me, us, I'm speaking in terms of our devotional conversation, existing in a religious world where there is nothing but oath and commitment to it. Despite oath and commitment to it being in existence, and despite everyone around submitting themselves to it, we are to exist. Our devotional conversation is to exist as though we do not know it exists. Do you remember the saying, be in the world and not of the world? Usually we hold that saying to a secular connotation, but in reality, it is not a secular connotation, because the world that the Bible talks about is not a literal world. It is the world of religion. Bible is actually a book telling the individual conversation to refrain from the world of religion. You are in the world of religion, but do not be of the world of religion, is what the Bible's conscience would have our devotional understanding gravitate towards. And while that may sound a little off, again, just like I had the verses from last week to prove that point of be still and do nothing, how are we supposed to be still and do nothing and still acquire everything we would like? That's a conundrum, and it really isn't, because the answer is here. The oath exists. This is all figurative language. We have to interpret this for our present age and time. The oath exists. Just taking these things and just going. The earth exists by oath. The religious world exists by oath. There is nothing that can be done about this. There is nothing that can be changed. This is the blueprint to how our life works. And when I say our, I mean devotional, philosophical, spiritual. Natural devotional life is ruled, the blueprint is by religious law. No matter what denomination, no matter whatever, it is ruled by religious law. That's the blueprint. Just as the oath here in this story dominated the conscience of everyone there, so too for us. What dominates the conscience, first off, is religious law, or should I say religious oath. Yet you have one existing while the same oath exists, tasting of the forbidden honey. So while we meaning our conversation, while our conversation exists in a realm where the blueprint is oath, we have to be able to maintain our conversation in a way that does not conflict with its personal need, despite the oath in existence and hovering above it. We have to behave. Our conversation has to behave without understanding oath, just as Jonathan did. When our conversation can behave without understanding oath, we will be able to understand the honey that is to enlighten us. That's the point. And so the questions that I've been getting, how do you do without doing, concerning the devotional conversation? How do you do without doing? The idea of religion being a chase, taking away the individual from their experience. And that's what led me to this example right here. The oath and the conscience that these individuals were they were held to. The oath kept them from the enlightenment that Jonathan experienced. The oath kept them. They believed enlightenment and good and divine favor. and in the satisfaction of themselves. Well, they believed, even though the Bible says they were faint, they believed that it would somehow, due to the oath and due to the link of to where that oath is connected to beyond this earth, and the one that from the one that gave it, whose throne is connected supposedly to the one that is beyond this earth. There's a lot that goes into that they took serious. And so to see Jonathan taste, you have to believe and imagine that at that time, if we could go back, he should actually be struck down or something. He should be cursed immediately. But he wasn't. His eyes, and to the Bible, again, eyes don't mean literal eyes. Eyes mean mind. As in the book of Ephesians 1 and verse 18, the eyes of your understanding being enlightened. That's there. The eyes of your understanding being enlightened. So when we hear this story of Jonathan, Saul, that honey, you have to be able to rationalize it. That honey is not, for us in 2023, literal honey. This is honey of understanding. As the Proverbs and the Psalms make plain, that honey is wisdom or knowledge, or wisdom of knowledge. The oath kept the people from wisdom of knowledge. The oath kept the people from wisdom of knowledge. The oath kept the people from wisdom of knowledge. The author writing the book of Samuel understands everything that they're writing. The author of the book of Samuel understands everything that they're writing. To the individual that is not so into looking beyond the words on the page will be what they will be. The author of the Bible, the author of the book of Samuel, they're not writing for those people. Those folks are their own. Bible's writing for the individual that is willing to understand what the scene symbolizes and in their age that they are living in. The author writing the book of Samuel is poking fun. The author of the book of Samuel in this scene is poking fun at the oath-led experience. They're poking fun at the oath-led experience. And in a way where they're not just doing this from within themselves, they're taking into context former scriptures and former passages concerning the illustrations of honey and enlightenment and everything that they're saying. They understand that when it comes to the oath and to an oath-led experience, it is keeping the individual, it is withdrawing the individual from practical understanding. They understand this. That's why that's here. And that's why I have here another quote from the book of Proverbs. Remember, it says that it was because of the oath that no one put their hand to their mouth. Proverbs 19:24 says, a slothful man hideth his hand in his bosom, and will not so much as bring it to his mouth again. It is the oath that kept the people from putting their hand to their mouth. What does that mean? That means from feeding themselves. Again, this is allegorical and figurative. The oath-led experience will stop the conversation from actually feeding itself. What does that mean? What happened when these people did not eat anything because of the oath? Bible says they were faint. Bible says they were faint. If you have to go back to this scene, I don't have the entire scene here because that would be ridiculous. But Bible says that they were faint. The oath added faintness to them. That's a lesson for us. The author of the book of Samuel is giving us a lesson on the oath-led experience. And if you have to take it into account, and it's just plain and blatant, and I won't do that, but if you have to take into account the benefit that the oath-led experience gave to these people, you would really say there was no benefit to it, because they did not regard anything properly concerning what was made with them. They perverted it. And you can also say that it added faintness to them. The author of the book of Samuel is giving the individual learner an instrument to go about handling themselves. It is because of the oath that they became faint. Yet Jonathan, existing with that oath hovering above him, tasted of the honey and experienced enlightenment. And the ones that saw said, "Your father cursed us. How is it that you're feeling and experiencing enlightenment through a curse? What is this?" And there's Jonathan laughing at them. "If only you could have tasted just a bit of this honey. You would have been enlightened and refreshed, and your faintness would not have affected you as much as it is right now." This is allegorical. It is the allegory of the covenant experience, or the oath-led experience, versus an experience feeding the structure of the mind. It is an experience of the oath-led experience versus a mindful experience. We today exist in a realm where the blueprint, again, is religious law. And the stricter you get, the more beautiful it's seen. Why? Because, well, hey, I was an alcoholic, I was addicted to pornography, I used to abuse myself and my children and wife, but now I found the strictness of this particular religion, and this strictness keeps me in check. Now, because of my 50 routines, I want to do something other than abuse my wife. And we have to think to ourselves, is this really helping us? Is it really helping us? Bible has an opinion. The oath distressed the land. The oath perverted their conscience, turned the conscience of the individuals against themselves. They were made faint because of the oath that they were bound to. This is the Bible. The Bible isn't going to tell us everything, right? And it shouldn't, because we are humans and we have minds, and we should be able to exercise them beyond what we're seeing on a page. Bible isn't going to tell us everything. Bible is going to give us philosophical concepts so that we can meditate on it. Again, like I said, maybe many episodes prior, the experience that the Bible is giving is not for everyone. The experience that the Bible is giving is for the individual that understands that they have hurt themselves and others and want to do better. Bible has a wisdom for the individual that does not want to keep on hurting themselves, but wants to retrain and discipline what is within them. No routine involved. There is no handbook. There is no guide. Proverbs tells us, "Guide thine heart in the way." There is no law there. There is no guru there. There is no expert there. And at times, the deity we imagine to be there will be hidden, because it is supposed to be self and conversation with words, or should I say with honey. The Bible is allowing us to understand the practical routine that is at its core in this one scene. It is the oath. The oath distressed the land because it is the oath that keeps slothful. The oath stopped them from putting their hand to their mouth. Book of Proverbs tells us that the slothful will not put their hand to their mouth. We got to put one and one together. The oath-led experience creates the slothful individual. The oath-led experience creates the slothful individual, the careless individual. Because by caring so much for the oath, you're going to forget about caring for yourself. That's the point. The oath made them faint. By regarding the oath above themselves, they became faint. The oath-led routine, the oath-led practice will make faint. Bible's mind knows this, but Bible's mind will not tell the individual reader to do or to not do. Bible gives illustration to help make a plain for the individual reading to make a decision for the well-being of their conversation. The more that we give our conversation to a routine structured up on the blueprint of the religious world, it is the more faint that we within will become. When times get difficult, routine doesn't kick in. Those 50 routines that stopped us from whatever we were doing, when times get difficult in that instance will cause us to forget about that routine, and we will go right back to the unnurtured character that we supposedly dislike. And yet we thought religion would make better. It will come out again because it's not made better. The oath-led routine does not make the human being better. It makes the human being faint. But what makes the human being better, what refreshes the human being, is even just a little bit of tasting of that honey within the Bible's words. And more specifically, and when I say the tasting of the honey within the Bible's words, I'm not saying every day, every night, your face needs to be within the Bible. What you take from within, from those pages, gather them within and exercise them on a daily basis, as far as is possible as can be for where you are in your journey. Exercise for the purpose of wisdom. That's the honey. Sure, the Bible's words, they will be what they will be. But the sweetness of them only comes as we understand their result. It is the result that refreshes the conscience. It is the result of those words activated and actuated that allows the eyes of our understanding to receive what they need to receive for the particular experience that we are supposed to be having. That is how you do without doing. That is how you do without doing. When the taste of those words is allowed an entrance into what is within us, to where that entrance has, the means whereby germination can take place, to take root. And then by that germination, naturally carrying out what is within there without us even thinking about it. That's the honey. That's the experience. That is the refreshing of the eyes of our understanding. And there is no oath that anyone can commit themselves to for such an experience. The oath-led experience actually stops that from happening. How? Again, because the experience is so focused on keeping the oath and being led by it, the individual and the conversation is not mindful of the actual body that should be nurtured. Caring so much for the oath, the actual body will be forgotten. Caring so much for the oath, the devotional body will be forgotten. It will become faint. And who knows what it will do when it is in that condition. And worst of all, Who knows what our human being will do when our conversation is faint? That's how we fall back into patterns that we know we shouldn't. That's how we continue to do harmful things to ourselves when we know that we shouldn't. That's how we end up in a routine of doing and then asking for forgiveness, and then doing and then asking for forgiveness, and then doing and then asking for forgiveness, and then doing and then asking for forgiveness. As it says in the book of Hebrews 10:1 and 2, if these things were any good, there would be no more conscience for sins. And I'm using this term sin here in a secular sense because the religious world and the oath led religion is a secular experience. So we are thinking that a right and divine experience is coming from what is oath led, but it is actually a secular experience masquerading as a spiritual thing, and it's not. Illustration from this scene is letting us know that the oath led experience is ruining and is causing faintness. But if we would but taste the honey that is within the Bible, we would have something within us to refresh us. We would have something within us to enlighten us. That's what it's about, honestly. There is no routine that one can do to heal what is within them. There is nothing you can commit yourself to kill the character of whatever you perceive to be injurious to yourself. There's no routine that can do that. There's no religion that can do that. There's no oath that you can commit yourself to that can do that. That's what this scene with Jonathan is talking about. The only thing that can calm whatever is within us that we know should be calmed is the act of tasting and letting what is tasted be digested, and letting what is digested refresh. That is the only living experience that our conversation should know, because at the core, as I always say, at the core of the Bible's philosophy is attaining an experience by wisdom and understanding. And lately, as I've been saying, doing nothing to do so. Again, why? Because whatever is wrestling within will form and germinate within, so that what is within can then act without any effort. Last week I talked about blood. Our blood is flowing through our body. Can you feel it? No. Why? Because the body is not chasing circulation, it attains it naturally. I mentioned hearing. You're hearing me right now. How? Because the hearing that we have, it is not chasing sound, but it is attaining it. It doesn't have to chase sound, it's happening. That same scene that is going on within us naturally, we should carry over to our devotional conversation. It is the oath led experience that will cause trauma and faintness. That's Bible humor. That's what this scene is about. We have a people that is regulated by oath and they don't realize how faint they actually are. That's Bible humor. Yet you have an individual with oath hovering in existence, not knowing about what's hovering in existence, dipping and tasting into the honey and receiving the intended refreshing. That's Bible humor, like to the max. Doesn't get any better than that. That's Bible humor to the max. And that's why I enjoy the Bible so much. Because while the Bible on the surface portrays itself in a certain way, underneath the Bible's mind is not what the outward portrayal is. And when we're hearing of this scene, and then I've got this proverb here of the slothful and not bringing their hand to their mouth again, and you're hearing that this oath caused them not to bring their hand to their mouth again, the Bible is messing with us. And we have to be able to see it. We have to be able to see that the oath-led experience is stopping the individual conversation from putting its hand to its mouth again, meaning from stopping itself from feeding itself because it's reliant so much on trusting and believing in the oath. It's receiving no sustenance, it's growing faint, just like these figures here did. But our responsibility is to take personal accountability of the condition of our conversation. That can only happen through the tasting of that honey. And the tasting of that honey, again, though the Bible acknowledges the words of the Bible to be honey as wisdom and knowledge, or wisdom of knowledge, I'm taking that a step further, and I'm saying that the actual honey, the actual sweetness, I should say, because honey connotes sweetness, the actual sweetness of the Bible's wisdom and knowledge is the effect of that wisdom and understanding. That's the sweetness. It is that sweetness that harmonizes what is within us, that helps us to no longer have that living and then forgiving routine, living and then forgiving routine, living and then needing to ask for forgiveness routine in prayer. It's that inward installment of that wisdom that moves the individual forward. And that's what the author of the book of Samuel here is figuratively alluding to. So I'll just stop here for now because of the questions of, I just wanted to use an example to answer the question of, or the questions that I've been receiving of, how do you do without doing concerning the devotional conversation? How do you do without doing? Well, the answer is taste the honey and let it be within. And then the sweetness will arise and refresh. That way, when we are serving whatever we believe to be serving, we don't need a routine to do so. We don't need to wear anything around our neck to do so. We don't need anything on our fridge, no sort of magnet. We don't need a picture of anyone on our wall. We don't need anything because we are doing naturally from what is within us. We don't have to chase the experience. Everything around the wearing of the neck and then all of it is a chasing. Uh, It's chasing. Bible isn't about chasing. Bible's philosophy is about attaining experience and understanding from what is within. So I will stop there. And for whatever we go through this week, don't chase. Whether it is we are seeing something within the Bible or something we're going through in life, whatever we're going through, do your best to remember something practical concerning the wisdom within the Bible. Do your best to remember that. And despite the consequence, despite how you may look for keeping that wisdom in that situation, do it, keep it, and find out what happens. I can guarantee you, it may not be the next day, it may not be that next weekend, it may not be that month or the next month, but eventually you will understand the understanding and the kind of dialect that your conversation must have in order to have the kind of fulfilling experience that you envision for it. And I will do the same with you.